Away across the great sea of blue waters that curled about the shores of Midgard, the dwelling place of Odin's earth children, were the dark, frowning, rock-bound mountains, the castles of the terrible giants whom even the gods feared. One of these giants, Vafthrudnir, was known among them as the All-Wise. He is our chief. He is wiser even than the gods of Asgard. The giants sometimes would thunder across the wide blue sea. And indeed it was true. For none among the gods had yet been able to answer his questions, nor could they. Neither could they ask of him one that he could not answer. "We will bear the insolence of this giant no longer," said Odin to Frigg. "I will go to him, and the race of giants shall know that at last wisdom dwells not in Jotunheim, but in the golden city of the gods, the glorious, shining city of Asgard." "Who comes?" thundered Vafthrudnir, as Odin approached his mountain peak. "It is I, a mere traveller, but as I chanced to be journeying through your country, I heard of your wonderful wisdom. In my own country, far away to the west, I too am accounted somewhat wise. Let us test each other and learn which of us is wiser." "Test each other? Learn which is wiser?" bellowed the great giant, his voice echoing and re-echoing across the sea. Until the very walls of the golden hall upon Mount Ida trembled, and the earth children in the valley below clung to each other in fear. "Whichever one fails forfeits his life. You know that, I trust," added Vafthrudnir with a sneer. "I know," answered Odin quietly, "but let us begin. Night will come upon us, and I must reach my home while the sun god is still above us. You will never see your home again, so it matters little whether we begin early or late. However, tell me, foolish, vain earth-child that you are, what river is it that flows between this home of the all-powerful giants and the home of the gods?" "The name of that river is Ifing," answered Odin, "and I can tell you more than that, because it touches upon the shores of the city of the gods. The Ice King Njord has no power over it. His breath cannot freeze it. Year after year, Njord tries to imprison its sparkling waters, that you giants may cross upon its crust and attack the shining city. But it will never freeze. You will never cross it. Asgard is forever safe." The giant dropped his mighty jaw. His eyes stared like great suns of fire. His terrible frame trembled. Down came his club upon the floor of his great castle. Again Ask and Embla paled with fear as the valley shook beneath their feet. "Who are you?" roared the all-wise giant. "Who are you that you know that river's name? Who are you that you dare tell me I shall never cross to its farther shore?" "It matters little who I am," answered Odin, his eyes flashing, his beautiful figure growing taller and taller. "But listen now while I whisper in your ear my question." And with a mighty stride, Odin crossed to Vafthrudnir's throne, leaned forward, seized him by the shoulder and hissed 3 words into the gigantic cave-like ear. What those words were, no man ever knew. Forever they shall remain a secret between Vafthrudnir and the All-Father Odin. The giant paled, staggered to his feet, groaned and fell. The walls of the great hall swayed to and fro, the lightning flashed. The thunder pealed from peak to peak. Odin had conquered. The All-Father was now the All-Loving and the All-Wise too, and as such was ever after acknowledged by all living creatures, gods and men, dwarfs and giants. There had lain for ages upon ages, hidden away in the great rocky cellar of one of the giants' castles, a cask of wine, which had been stolen from the gods. Never before had the gods been able to learn what had become of it, what giant had stolen it, nor in what castle it was hidden. But now that Odin had become all-wise, nothing could be concealed from him. "I know at last where the wine lies hidden," said Odin one day to his son Thor, "and I shall set forth to find it." Thor brought down his hammer with a thud. "Let me go with you," cried he, springing up, "and let me fell to the earth with one blow of my magic hammer the giant who has stolen and has kept hidden all these ages our precious wine." "No," answered Odin. "This time I must go alone. The wine is guarded day and night, and it will not be easy to bring it away, even when I have found it. But watch for me, dear son. One day there will come, beating its wings against the shining gates of our city, a great white eagle. Do not harm the eagle, open the gates to him, for that eagle will be Odin, returning with the stolen wine to our city of Asgard." Then Odin put aside his sparkling crown and laid down his scepter. His wonderful blue mantle, studded with stars and fastened always with a pale crescent moon, he also threw aside, and stepped forth in the garb of a common labourer. "It is in this guise that I shall win my way to the giant's castle," said Odin, and in a second he had passed out from the hall and was gone. It was the giant Suttung that had stolen the wine, and it was in his castle that it had lain hidden all these years. Now of all the strong castles of all the giants, Suttung's castle was the strongest. The cellar was cut into the solid rock. Moreover, 3 sides of the castle rose in solid walls of granite, while the 4th, no less firm and strong, was built of massive blocks bound with hoops and bars and bolts of strongest iron and steel. Now Suttung had a brother, Borg, who was a giant farmer. He kept 9 strong slaves, half giants themselves, to do his work for him. As Odin approached the fields of Borg's farm, he saw the 9 men hard at work. "Your scythes are dull," said he as he drew near. "Yes, but we have no whetstone to sharpen them upon," answered the workmen, the great drop standing out upon their foreheads. "I will sharpen them on mine," said Odin, drawing one from his pocket. "It is a magic whetstone," cried the men as they saw it work. "Give it to us. We need it more than you. Give it to us. Give it to us." "Take it then," answered Odin, throwing it high in the air and walking off. It is mine, it is mine, let me have it, give it to me, I will have it. Out of the way, it shall be mine, screamed and quarrelled the 9 men as they pushed and crowded, each one determined to catch the whetstone as it came down to earth. At last it fell. Then a fiercer battle followed. The angry men fell upon each other. They dragged and pulled and threw each other to the ground. They pounded each other. They struck at each other with their scythes. On and on they fought. Hour after hour the battle waged, till at last the sun god, in sheer dismay at so unloving a sight, hid his face behind the hills. And the 9 men lay dead upon the fields. It was an hour later when Odin reached the castle of Borg. "Can you give me shelter for the night?" he asked, as the giant appeared at the door of his castle. "Yes, I can give you shelter, but you must look elsewhere for your breakfast. A strange thing has happened. My 9 slaves, while at work in the field, have fallen in battle upon each other and have killed each other. Not one of them is left alive to serve me." "They must have been idle, quarrelsome fellows," answered Odin. "They were indeed," answered Borg. "But how shall I get my work done without them?" "I will do the work for you," answered Odin. "You? There is but one of you, even if you are willing to try," answered Borg, but with little interest. "But I can do the work of any 9 men that ever served you." The giant laughed. "A remarkable workman. Pray, do you ask the wages of 9 men as well?" "I ask no wages," answered Odin. "I only ask as my pay when the work is done. You shall give me a draught of wine from the cask hidden in your brother's cellar." Borg stared. "How did you know there is a cask in my brother's cellar?" he gasped. "It is enough that I know it," answered Odin coldly. Borg looked at Odin. "He is better than no man," he thought to himself. "I may as well get what work I can from him, before he finds that no being on earth can enter that cellar or force my brother to give away 1 drop of that wine." "Very well, you may go to work," he said aloud. "I cannot promise you that we can make our way into my brother's cellar, but I will do what I can to help you." "That is all I ask," answered Odin. "Now let me sleep, for I am tired, and if I am to do 9 men's work, I must have 9 men's sleep." "And must you have 9 men's food?" cried Borg. "I think it very likely," answered Odin with a queer smile. "Now let me sleep." "What is your name?" asked Borg of his new workman when they set forth the next morning to the fields. "You may call me Bölverk," answered Odin. "Will 1 name be enough for all 9 of you?" said Borg with a disagreeable curling of his upper lip. "I will not burden your giant mind with more than 1, Odin answered, a funny little twinkle in his eye. The giant gave a furious grunt. He did not quite know whether his new workman was stupid, or whether under all his seeming meekness it might not be that he was making fun of him. Well, Borg set Bölverk to work, and then, lazy fellow that he was, stretched himself out on a mountainside to watch. "That new workman of mine," he bellowed, calling the attention of a neighbour giant to Odin at work in the field. "Do you see him down there among the corn? He says he can do 9 men's work." "A workman usually thinks himself equal to any 9 other working men," roared back the neighbour. "Of course you have agreed to give him 9 men's wages?" Then the 2 giants roared with laughter. They thought they had said a very bright thing. And very likely they had. It is only because you and I are mere earth children that we do not think so too. As the days went on, Borg began to laugh less and to wonder more at his strange workmen. He worked on quietly from sunrise till sunset. He did not seem to hurry in his work. He did not work over hours, but strange to say, the work went on, as the workmen had promised. No 9 men could have done more or could have done it better. It was harvest time when Odin came, the time when Frey, the god of the fields and of all that grows, glides around among his children and covers them over, or gathers in their wealth and beauty. Like the kind, loving father he is, he whispers to them now of Njord, who so soon will come, sweeping across the earth, breathing his cold, freezing breath upon all the world, and covering it over with a cold white sheet that kills the flowers and the fruits. He teaches his children to curl themselves up beneath the earth until the cruel Njord is gone. For Njord seeks to kill the tiny leaves and buds and shrivel the radiant flowers that through all the long, warm summer days have lifted their faces so brightly to their good friend, the sun god. Perhaps it was because Frey and Odin worked together that there were such rare crops, and that the harvesting went on so smoothly. Certain it was that all the fields were cleared, the cellars were filled, and all was ready for the long cold months to come, when cruel Njord was king. Even Borg was in good humour. "You are indeed a wonderful workman," he said to Odin, as the last cellar was fastened and he sat down to rest. "You are kind," answered Odin, the funny little twinkle coming again into his eyes. "Perhaps you would be willing to come with me now to your brother, that I may drink from the cask of wine that he keeps so closely guarded in his cellar." Borg began to feel uncomfortable. "He will not allow either you or me to so much as look upon that wine. You cannot have it." "Borg," said Odin, growing very tall and godlike, his wonderful eyes flashing with a light like fire, "you promised to do all you could to help me. Come and do as I bid you." Borg stared. His first thought was to kill the workman on the spot, but there was something about him, he hardly knew what, that made him instead rise and follow Odin to the brothers' castle. "Tell me which cellar holds the wine," said Odin when they had reached the brothers' mountain. "This one," answered Borg. "Now take this auger, make a hole with it through the solid wall." Borg obeyed like one in a dream. It was a magic auger. How it worked! How the powdered stone flew in a cloud about his face. "This is a very—" Borg stopped. What had become of his workmen? Not a soul was in sight. Odin had disappeared. and to this day the giant never knew what became of him, nor does his brother know who stole his wine from the cellar. The stupid Borg stood staring now at the auger, now at the hole in the wall. He saw a little worm climb up the wall and disappear through the hole. That is all he ever saw or ever knew. The little worm laughed to itself as it crept in out of sight. "You are very stupid, Borg, not to know me." Reaching the inner side of the wall, the little worm stopped to look about. There stood the cask, and beside it sat the daughter of the giant. "Poor girl," said Odin, said the worm to himself. "It is a bitter fate to be doomed to sit forever in this wretched dungeon, watching your father's stolen treasure. But be happy, soon you will be free. There will be no wine to watch." The young giantess must have heard his words, for she looked up. There, just in front of the hole, the ray of light falling full upon his golden hair, stood a most beautiful youth. He looked so kindly upon her, and his eyes were so full of pity. Her heart went out to him at once. "I am very tired," he said gently, "so very tired. I have come a long, long distance. My home is far from here. I cannot tell you how far, but very, very far. If you would give me just one draught from the cask of wine." The poor girl, grateful for the sound of a friendly voice and for the sight of a human face, arose and lifted the lid for him. Odin leaned over the cask. He put his lips to the wine and drank. "You are very thirsty," said the giantess. "Very," answered Odin, drinking on and on. "You are very thirsty," said the giantess again. "Very," answered Odin, still drinking on and on and on. "You are very thirsty," said the giantess again, this time louder, her voice filled with fear. "Very," answered Odin, still drinking on and on and on and on. Nor did he stop till every drop was gone and the cask stood dry and empty. The young giantess, realizing all too late that the wine was stolen, ran to the cellar gateway, shouting as only a giant can shout for help. The gateway flew open. In rushed the giants, Borg and his brother. "The wine, the wine!" they cried. "Stolen, stolen!" sobbed the giantess, her sobs shaking even the solid cellar walls. "The thief, the thief!" cried the giants. "Where is the thief?" But there was no thief to be found. There stood the empty cask, but the thief? There was no living creature to be seen. No living creature? I should not have said quite that, for there arose from a darkened corner of the cellar a beautiful great white bird. Its wings brushed against the sides of the gateway as it passed. Then higher and higher, up, up, far, far away beyond the sea above the clouds it soared, never resting until its great wings beat against the golden bars of the shining gates of Asgard.